Please welcome to the stage, Tracey Starin.
He asked, and I said yes. And it was all happening. We were celebrating with friends. We were registering for towels. We were gathering the money that we'd saved for years to buy an apartment. We were planning our honeymoon, 2 weeks in the Pacific Northwest. We hadn't had much of a chance to travel together because we were always working and going to school and saving money. And this was going to be the first of many trips we were planning. I was sending out resumes because it was time for me to take the next step in my career. We had a great life. And we had great friends who were a huge part of our lives. I was that friend that everybody called when something was going on. Will you come with me to pick out furniture? Will you read my manuscript and let me know what you think? Will you help me write my resume? We all had so many plans, and nothing seemed out of reach. One day, on our way home from going to a wedding venue, I started to notice small differences in my vision. It was just a dark spot, a small spot in the very corner of my eye. It was so small that I wasn't sure it was there. And I dismissed it. But then it grew. And I decided in the middle of the planning and the being and the having and the doing that I needed to go to an eye doctor. He took one look in my eye and he knew what it was instantly. I got my marriage license and my diagnosis on the same day. I had a neurological disorder where my head filled up with spinal fluid and it caused my optic nerves to swell. So they sent me to the hospital for treatment. I exchanged my 2 weeks in the Pacific Northwest for 2 weeks at New York Presbyterian Hospital in beautiful Washington Heights. Though by the time my ordeal was over, it would be 6 weeks in the hospital, 7 spinal taps, and 2 brain surgeries later. When I came home, everything was different. Part of my vision was gone. I had surgical wounds that were still healing, including a hole in my skull and a scalp full of staples. I had to leave my job. I couldn't go out of the house by myself. I couldn't take a shower if I was home alone because I was a falling hazard. I couldn't bend over to tie my shoes. I had been an avid reader my whole life, and now I couldn't see well enough to read books. I couldn't put a key in a lock. Simple tasks that I had done every day of my life without thinking about were now insurmountable to me. I would stab and stab at a lock with the key and not be able to find the keyhole. And out of frustration and embarrassment, burst into tears until somebody came to help me. I needed help with everything, every day. One day, my husband dropped me off in front of my mother's house, and I couldn't find my way to the front door. I just stood on the curb, lost, not knowing which direction to walk in, until my husband jumped out of the car and walked me inside. And every time something like that happened, it hit us in the face, how different our lives were now. My friends didn't know what to say to me. Suddenly, I wasn't as useful as I was before. Most of them said nothing. My phone stopped ringing. I stopped hearing from them. During this time, I spent a lot of time at home alone, feeling lost, feeling frustrated, feeling helpless. I spent a lot of time daydreaming and watching old movies. And one of the movies that I watched all the time was that old Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, the original one. That was actually the first movie I ever saw in a movie theater as a child, because I'm old. And it started a lifelong love of Caped Crusaders. And I started to wonder, am I in the middle of my own origin story? Superheroes' powers are revealed to them during times of extreme adversity. I thought, is that what's happening to me? Is that why this happened? Am I going to find out what my strengths are? I can't see. Maybe my senses of hearing and my sense of smell will get sharper. But no superpowers were becoming apparent. I certainly didn't have super speed. Everything in my life slowed down. And I couldn't walk through walls. I couldn't even stop myself from walking into them. It would be over a year of recovery before I would find any kind of normalcy. But with a lot of effort, my husband and I found a new normal. With my hands out in front of me, I learned my way to feel my way through the world. I felt my way across walls. With my hands on the banister, I felt my way up and down the stairs. I even was able to feel a key into the lock. The first time I did that was a personal victory. I arranged my apartment so that I knew where everything was all the time. And I learned how to do little tasks. I learned how to adjust. I started listening to audiobooks. I learned how to need and accept help, like having somebody read me a menu in a restaurant. And we coasted along in this new version of my life for quite some time. We started going to plays and movies and concerts again. 5 years, almost to the week of my first hospitalization, I had a relapse. It was more, and I came out with less vision, and this time having to take a fistful of pills every day and having to follow up with specialists. I was weak. I was tired. It would be a much longer period of adjustment this time. At this point, I abandoned the search for superpowers. It seemed pointless to look for evidence that I could fly when I could barely stand. It would take a long time before we found that new normal again. And I lived in constant fear of another relapse. That 5-year mark came and went without another relapse. And I was very happy, but I never breathed a sigh of relief because I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then one summer day, we were driving home from the Museum of the Moving Image, and we were in a terrible car accident. We were very, very lucky because the car was totaled, but with the exception of some bumps and bruises and some broken ribs, we literally walked away from the accident, except my hand. My right hand, my dominant hand, got mangled. My hands are how I process the world. And now I wasn't going to have my hand. I was going to have to relearn how to do everything without my eyes and without one of my hands. Once again, all those simple tasks, tying my shoes, putting a key in the lock, became insurmountable to me. I felt like without my hands, I was losing touch with the world. I was losing my grip on reality. And it was overwhelming. And again, I felt helpless. I felt lost. And I didn't know how I was going to get through it. I didn't know how I was going to adjust this time to find another new normal. It would be 8 months of physical therapy and over a dozen visits to a specialist. And I would not have the use of my hand for the better part of a year. And in the middle of it, one day, I was home alone in my living room, feeling desperate, feeling hopeless. And I walked over to the chair, and out of sheer emotional exhaustion, I didn't even sit in the chair. I slumped to a heap on the floor. And I said out loud to nobody, almost in tears, I keep trying, but things keep happening. I keep trying, but things keep happening. I keep trying, but things keep happening. And I let out a long, low sigh. And just at that minute, the sun shifted a little bit, and a thin beam of light broke through the curtain and landed right on my leg. And I felt like I had been struck by lightning. And I thought to myself, if I shift a little bit, I can change my outlook on everything and put everything in a new light. And then I said out loud, almost exuberantly, things keep happening, but I keep trying. Things keep happening, but I keep trying. Things keep happening, but I keep trying. And that's when I discovered my superpower, resilience.